have to decide, are we going to go to the far, far, far right and have a senator sitting in Harry Truman's Senate seat that wants to privatize Medicare, privatize Social Security, and do away with the federal government having any help at all for student loans? Those are the big three, right there. Now, as you all know, Harry Truman worked very hard on making sure that we had Medicare and Social Security. And I remember reading back in the debates and going back and reading all the press coverage. You know what they said about Medicare? That our country was going to be communist the next week.
Sure did.
In fact, there was a letter written that said, if we elect this president again, our country is going to turn into a communist nation. And that was a letter written about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So some things pop up again, you know what I mean. But privatizing Medicare is not the answer. Privatizing Social Security is a very bad idea. And we all know what happens if the federal government gets out of the student loan business. Who goes to college? Just rich kids. Just rich kids. And our country has been this shining beacon on the hill for nations across the world, because in our country, it didn't matter if your parents were rich. It didn't matter if your parents were somebody that everybody knew. You had a chance in this country to grab that first rung of the ladder and pull yourself up with a student loan. The notion that we do away with that, the notion that we get to be a country where only rich kids can go to college, you talk about devastating to the middle class in this country. You talk about having a country where there's just the haves and the have-nots. All three of my opponents think it's okay for us to keep writing $40 billion a year checks to the big oil companies. They think that's fine for us to subsidize the most profitable corporations in the history of the planet. They think it's fine for us to keep giving taxes cuts to multimillionaires, but they want to do away with student loans. Now that is called a misplaced priority, is what that is. I think it's really important that we hold on to the Farm Bill, which the Tea Party fought, that we hold on to highway funding, which the Tea Party fought, that we hold on to the FAA bill, that we hold on to our post offices. All my opponents want to privatize the post offices. Get rid of the most reliable and affordable mail service the world's ever known. And it's especially devastating to rural areas. So I got three opponents that are all Tea Party. Proud to say they are. One's been endorsed by the Tea Party Express, one's been endorsed by the largest Tea Party organization in the country, and the third one, not to be outdone, is being endorsed by Michelle Bachmann. So that gives you some idea of how close they are. They're three of a kind, one and the same. I'm proud that I'm a moderate, and I'm proud that I'm willing to compromise. I'm proud that I work with Republicans all the time on common sense things, like bringing down federal spending. I worked on that with Jeff Sessions, a Republican from Alabama. I worked on reforming earmarks with John McCain. Right now I'm working with Marco Rubio on making sure that the UN doesn't control the internet. I'm also working with Rob Portman to make sure that our manufacturers have favorable tariffs so that we can continue manufacturing in this country. So I'm not afraid to walk across the aisle. In fact, they ranked us 1 to 100. The National Journal did, on liberal and conservative. On the liberal scale, I was number 50. On the conservative scale, I was number 51. Or as I like to say from Missouri, I was in the sweet spot. Now, you're going to hear a lot of talk, especially maybe down in this part of the world, that this election is over and Claire McCaskill can't win. I want to tell you right now, if anybody wants to bet you whether I'm going to win this race, you take that bet, and I'll cover it. Because I know that when Missourians, that middle of the road, when that middle of the road knows what these people stand for, they're not going to want that extreme. They want someone who is about compromise and common sense and independence. And as you can tell, they're after me. Have you noticed? That's all secret money. I think if Missourians knew who was paying for it, they'd be proud of me. I think they'd appreciate the enemies I've made. But we'll never know who's buying these ads, and frankly, if somebody's not willing to say who they are, I don't think we should believe a word they say.
Amen.
And I'll tell you this, they're packed with lies and distortions about my record. And they're going to keep lying. They're going to lie about the health care bill, which they do every day. They're going to lie about my record, which they're doing every day. And hopefully, all of you can get out and spread the word. What the truth is, that it's not what they say it is. It's about holding on to the middle class. Let's see if we can get some people to vote in their own economic self-interest this election.
Amen.
Instead of for this, the very tiny sliver at the top that these guys want to take care of. Let's make sure that small businesses and our producers and our farmers, that they have a chance at this American dream. And we're not going to have that if we keep letting them do everything they want to do for the very, very sliver at the top while everybody else is sitting around with an empty cup. So thank you for being here today. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We're going to have an office. We're going to have people working in the office.
Right.
We got thousands of phone calls to make. We got hundreds of doors to knock on right here in Sikeston. And we really need you. And I came really to stop and say more than anything, to look you all in the eye and say I appreciate you and how much I need you. You know, they said in that Citizens United case that corporations are people. You know, they're not. They don't love. They don't have children. They don't worry about their parents. They don't worry about a roof over their head. They don't worry about their retirement. They don't worry about their pensions. And you know what else? They only have one purpose, corporations, and that's to make money. They're not people. And at the end of the day, they don't vote either. So they're going to try to buy this election with Citizens United right out from underneath the American people. And the way we fight that is with people. So if you guys will help me with that, we'll get this done. And I'm very, very grateful for your support, and very nice of you to come by this morning and say hello. Thank you very much.